injury. Britain's Marcus Willis won his first-round match, his qualifying for Wimbledon against Andre Martin of Slovakia in straight sets, and Mark Cavendish is one of 3 Britons who will be racing for Team Dimension Data at the Tour de France, which starts on Saturday. He's joined by Steve Cummings and Scott Thwaites.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Thank you, Will. Alfa Romeo Perry.
Just before Alfa Romeo get on to, I'm sure they're absolutely wonderful cars.
Yes, absolutely.
If they'd like to send us one, we could test drive.
Have you seen Will Perry? Of course. Look at this guy.
Country drive in the spin with
I
the
tell
wind
you,
in her hair.
it was the best ever car rental experience I have ever had. We got to this place and we were late and it was tiring, and you know how long it takes to get through car rental queues. They just take forever, and we were at the back, and eventually when we got there he was like, I have no cars left. Oh, you're joking me. He said, I have 1 car left. Would you like a present? And we said yes, and it was an Alfa Romeo Spider, and we'd built like a Fiat 1000 or something.
What you're saying is the Alfa Romeo was the last choice.
The last choice, and a present, and special.
It's not getting any better for Will here, is it? We're trying to make this seem really good.
I'm leaving, I'm going.
Great thing.
Cheers, Will. See you in a bit, my friend. OK, the weather. A dry afternoon for many with some spells of sunshine, although a few showers across Scotland, and cloud will build from the west, bringing some rain into Northern Ireland. Perhaps I could use some of that money to build a giant umbrella.
Sorry. Somebody has now texted to say Alphas look amazing or great to experience, but are overpriced and prone to frequent breakdown and malfunction.
Not a description of Will Perry, may I just say, from BBC Sport. Overnight, rain will become heavy across Northern Ireland, eventually moves into Scotland, North Wales and Northern England. Otherwise, a dry, cloudy and mild night, apart from the Northern Isles, where it'll be quite chilly under clearer skies. Tomorrow is likely to see scattered showers across the UK. Now, on the roads, still problems on the M25 clockwise in London. Slow traffic between junction 29, that's at Romford, and junction 30 for Lakeside after an earlier accident which involved 2 vans and a car. And on the M6 northbound in Cheshire, 1 lane is blocked and there's very slow traffic between junction 26 Crewe and junction 17 at the ever annoying Sandpatch, and that is because of an accident there.
5 Live Breakfast.
On 5 Live Breakfast this morning, Shah told us about being evacuated from his flat in Camden in North London after the block failed fire safety tests.
My family itself is my pensioner mother, my sister's family, she's got 4 children, her and her husband, my 6-month-old child, and my wife and myself. We were all sent here at the leisure centre on these inflatable beds, but it's already overcrowded. In the beginning, they told us, we can't accommodate you anywhere. You either stay here the night or, you find your own accommodation. Although there was somewhere to stay, there wasn't somewhere to stay.
Tomorrow from 6, all the build-up as the British and Irish Lions take on Super Rugby champions Hurricanes in Wellington.
5 Live Breakfast. Back tomorrow from 6.
It is afternoon edition. Thank you so much for being with us. TV Club is coming up in just a moment, but for the next few minutes, let's talk warships, because the Royal Navy's largest ever warship is due to set sail for the first time later today. This is the HMS Queen Elizabeth. It's cost more than £3 billion to build. It has a flight deck the size of 3 football pitches, and it will be the first British aircraft carrier to enter service since HMS Illustrious was decommissioned in 2014.
Now, the new carrier has been criticised, not just, of course, for the sheer cost of the thing, but also for the delays in getting it into the sea, a place that it needs to be in. Building work started back in 2009, and when it finally goes into service, it'll be an aircraft carrier without any aircraft. Hopefully it won't be sued under the Trade Descriptions Act. The government's decided to buy a version of the American F-35, a supersonic fighter, which is so expensive it's not clear if there's enough money to pay for a full complement of the planes. But 5 Live has been given exclusive access to the factory where the jets are being flight tested for takeoff and landing. And our very own Wing Commander Garnett, 5 Live's Nick Garnett, can tell us more about it. Good afternoon, Nick.
Very good afternoon to you.
So, what have you been up to then? Trying to find some planes in an aircraft carrier?
Yeah, it's not as crazy as it sounds, because this is a brand new aircraft carrier and they're not going to sea with planes on board. You can understand why. If you put multi-million-pound planes on a multi-billion-pound ship and you have mistakes or accidents, then it's going to cost an absolute fortune. The problem is, you were saying there that this is the size of 3 football pitches, but actually for landing and taking off planes, that seems to me to be fairly small. So they're using, in effect, a new version of the Harrier jump jet. It's a STOVL plane, as they call it, short takeoff and vertical landing. But how do you practice it? That's where BAE Systems factory in Warton in Lancashire comes in. They've built the most amazing flight simulator you've ever seen. Sarah, you would love it. It's like 100 Xboxes and PlayStations on acid. It comes in two halves. In one room, there's a life-size version of the cockpit, and in the other, there's a life-size version of the flight deck with a runway the same size as it would be if you were standing in the control tower looking out on it. It's so lifelike that you actually start to feel seasick. I was shown around by Pete Whizzer Wilson, BAE's test pilot, and the man has been working on this plane for 10 years to learn exactly how the F-35B handles, and he teaches other pilots how to take off and land without ending up in the sea.
The F-35 is the answer to the UK's wishes for a supersonic, STOFL, stealthy fighter plane that would be able to replace the Harriers, the Tornadoes, and keep us in a good place for the next probably 50 years. We are going to base it at sea, so we're going to put it on the new aircraft carriers that have been built, and therefore it will float around the world's oceans, representing the UK the world over.
Can we go into the first room and you tell me a little bit about what we see in here?
So as we head in, immediately obvious that we're at sea, and it's almost, to me, it's almost sort of realistic to the point that I start to get my sea legs and I can feel the thing floating around.
This is a huge screen. It's what, 270-degree wraparound screen?
Yes.
With a flight. What's the term for where this is?
Yes, well, we call it FlyCo. It is where the flying operations of the ship are commanded from. And so in the case of a Queen Elizabeth class carrier, we have these wonderful windows that stick out and give us this panoramic view of the flight deck, so we can see very aft, we can see behind the ship as far as we need to, and as we look forward we can see the ski jump off the front of the ship. And so any aircraft that are sitting down on the flight deck, we'd just be able to lean out there and see what's going on. So the one individual who's in charge of all the operations is the commander, and he sits up on a pedestal right here, and the safety officer who's looking after the safety of recovering and taking off airplanes, he's going to sit at the consoles here and the various computer displays and screens, and he's got functions and features that control the lighting, the radios, other communication systems, so he can interface with the aircraft as they're coming back and taking off.
Why is it important to have this room as realistic as this is?
For a particular type of approach that we're going to be doing with the F-35, which is called a shipborne rolling vertical landing, which means that we land the aeroplane with forward speed, which is a brand new type of maneuver, actually has been long thought about, but we're going to do it operationally for the first time in the fleet when we get the airplane and the carrier together. For this particular maneuver, it is critical that there's a safety individual on the carrier who's monitoring the operations. For him to do his job properly, we need to know what the job is, and that's why we have this facility, is so that we can see what it's like to be the safety guy, not just, we think it'll be okay, do some sort of paper-based assessment, but no kidding, sit in his seat, look at the view that he's got out the window and make sure he can do the job that he's required to do.
Whizzer Wilson, what an astoundingly good name that is. That was the control room then. What's the actual plane part of the simulator like?
Oh, you know what, it's staggering. But what you're about to hear is the reality. The real F-35B is even better than the flight simulator. Now, when I was a kid, you're younger than me, but when I was a kid, there was a Clint Eastwood film called Firefox, 1982, I think it was out. And it was real science fiction. Missiles that you could fire when you thought about it, stealth technology. Basically, somebody watched that film and then made it into a real plane and called it the F-35B, but it's better. And so they're testing this out to see how far they can push it. I'm led into this dark room full of projectors. They can simulate any type of attack or takeoff or landing scenario that the plane could encounter. I realise that I'm on the landing and takeoff area on the Queen Elizabeth. The sea's rolling about in front of me and behind me. In front of me there's the ski jump, which forces the planes into the air when they take off. And sitting in the cockpit next to me is Pete Wilson.
It's a real life-size F-35 cockpit that's been faithfully reproduced so that when the pilot sits in there, he believes he is in the real domain.
Do you forget where you are?
Yes, absolutely. If we end up in a circumstance that we have maybe exceeded the limitations of the aircraft's capabilities, then we can sometimes have a crash. When the airplane crashes, I close my eyes because I'm terrified. And there's nothing I can do to rationalize the fact that I'm in a simulator and it's not going to hurt. It actually, I believe it. And then I realized afterwards, okay, it didn't actually crash, I'm okay. So it's hard to believe that it's that real for the pilots, but that's exactly how real it becomes. Because we've experienced the real thing, you know, it's when you're put in this kind of level of emotion, it brings out the same emotions that you live with when you're flying the airplane come out, even though you're in the simulator.
Well, we're looking around at the screen of what we can see. There's a head-up display, which is what you'd see through your headset, presumably, is it? Or would that be on the windscreen?
No, so in the F-35, the head-up display is actually mounted on the helmet. So there's a visor that you pull down immediately in front of your face to cover your eyes and protect yourself from bird strikes, all those sorts of things that can damage the aeroplane. And the clever, another 5th-gen capability is that there are little projectors inside the helmet that project the image onto the visor, so that it doesn't matter where I turn my head, I can see a head-up display. And we also, a beauty, again, 5th generation, there are cameras mounted all around the outside skin of the F-35, and wherever you look, the image from the appropriate camera looking in that direction is shown on the visor. So I can actually look straight down underneath the airplane, and I see the image that the camera underneath the airplane sees straight down, and I have an unimpinged view, unobstructed view of the surface of the Earth beneath me, as if there's no airplane there and my legs don't exist. I look through the airframe.
Let's nip out of here, because the sound is very, very strange. If I hold the microphone away from me, you can hear the echoes coming louder and louder as we go around, because it's this globe environment. Very strange. So I'm going to... We've gone from being seasick in one room to feeling quite nauseous from that sound, so it's quite nice to be out here. Why is it important that you are doing this testing now?
If we went to sea with the carrier and the aircraft having not done any sort of testing, interoperability testing prior to us leaving, we would have to tread very carefully, because we wouldn't know how the two assets would come together. We wouldn't know where the cliff edges were, we wouldn't know what was safe and what was not safe. And we can't afford to do that. To do that and to tread carefully would take years, literally years of development effort, while the carrier was wanting to go on deployment, and the UK public quite rightly would be wanting those very expensive assets to go and do, you know, the business of peacekeeping and the other things that that carrier as an asset needs to do. So what we're doing right now is we're getting ahead of the curve, a long way ahead of the curve. Like, we already know what it will be like to go to sea, because we simulate it so faithfully to the point that we know it's going to be safe. And all we got to do is go out there, we got to flight test it to confirm that what we found here in the simulator is indeed true, and then the fleet will get a clearance and they will be good to go. So we spend now a little bit of money and we save a huge amount later by being able to get the fleet on their legs and up and running as soon as we can.
That was Five Live's Nick Garnett, who was given exclusive access to the factory where jets are being flight tested for takeoff and landing for the brand new carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth, which has cost more than £3 billion, and as was pointed out, as a flight deck the size of 3 football pitches.
Extraordinary stuff. Just coming up to 20 minutes past 3 o'clock. It is Afternoon Edition with Nahal and Sarah. Thank you so much for being with us. It is, of course, Monday. It is time to talk TV. The TV Times' Emma Bullimore is with us, alongside Heat Magazine's Boyd Hilton. A very good afternoon to you.
Hello.
And I know you've been hanging there for a while, so thank you.
Please don't ask me about aircraft carriers. I know nothing.
It's okay. You're fine.
Stovall. I love Stovall.
Yeah, good.
Short
good acronym.
takeover.
Yeah.
Nick Garnett knows everything, so we don't have to. What are you reviewing for us today, Boyd?
We're looking at Preacher Series 2, which launched today, in fact, on Amazon Prime, and carries on tomorrow with episode 2. That's kind of a huge, big show. And a show called Glow, which dropped, as they say, on Netflix on Friday, all 10 episodes in classic Netflix style, about lady wrestlers in the 80s.
There's some great hair in that, isn't there?
Classic looks.
Proper perms going on in there. Emma, what else are we going to be talking about?
Well, we're also going to be talking about various bits of TV news. So Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat have got their follow-up to Sherlock being planned. We'll talk about that. Also talk about EastEnders. Massive changes. It's had a rubbish year and that's about to change. Also, Angela Lansbury, a.k.a. Jessica Fletcher, might be back on telly, which is excellent news.
Wow, OK. As always, of course, we want you to get involved with TV Hour here on a Monday. You are very much a part of TV Club. That is, of course, if you have a TV, then You're just a spectator to the next 40 minutes, quite frankly.
Or a listener.
Yes. Well, you can stare at your radio at the same time if you want. We would like you to tell us about a TV show that you absolutely love that perhaps has slipped under the radar. So, no disrespect, but don't text us and go, EastEnders, you really want to check that out? It's a little bit more obscure than that because, of course, there is so much TV out there now across all different platforms, as it's called, that you can suggest to us little gems of televisual delight that you have come across, and just text us on 85058, or you can call us on 08085 909 693, and we may ask you to come on and just spend 30 seconds selling that show to us, and at the end of it, of course, Emma, I guess, will be... can you do it today, Sarah?
Can I do it today?
Yeah, would you?
You're asking me to do it. Look at this.
You're robbing me of my power.
I know, exactly. And I have no idea as well. I'm not unaccustomed to such levels of power on Monday.
I just thought that, I just wanted to test you with power to see if you would use it responsibly or whether you go Kim Jong-un on us.
Full megalomaniac. Well, depends how I'm feeling, really. Anything could happen. Now, next Monday, if you tune into TV Club, you won't hear it because you will be hearing the grunting sounds of Wimbledon. Do not worry, we have your television needs covered. There's a lot more to Wimbledon.
What kind of coverage are we doing?
That. Emma and Boyd have a foolproof guide to what we should be watching over the next few months, which is lovely because you know what I love? I love when you buy a Sunday newspaper during the summer and it gives you that big, thick pull-out of all the best books to read over the summer or the best films to watch or whatever
Old school.
else. Love that. Love having one of those and get it covered.
Because we don't get enough books.
Yeah. So you have 3 choices each for TV watching over the summer. Boyd, what's your first?
My first is a little show you may have heard of.
You're going in with a heavyweight, Boyd. You're going in with a heavyweight. You're coming out swinging.
Really
under the radar.
Game of Thrones.
Yes, come on.
Come on.
July 17th.
Sounds good. Tell me more.
You've etched the date on your
I
mind.
have.
That's good.
I
That's
have.
good. Yeah. I mean, it has to be addressed. I mean, we've had to wait months this year because normally by now we'd watched the whole thing. Yeah, it usually starts April, May sometime. Yeah. But there was a big delay because they had to film it in wintry, snowy conditions because winter finally is apparently coming to Westeros.
You would have thought that they would have sort of known that was happening, wouldn't you? Given that they've been saying it for 5 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, you would probably need to allow for that.
Well, they haven't got any books to go off now, have they, Boyd?
No, it's all original stuff. Yeah,
but winter's still coming, regardless.
Winter's still coming. The creators have.
Not if you're in Death Valley.
Yeah, right.
Oh, let's not.
Steady. The creators have been in touch, I believe, with George R. Martin. Well, George R. Martin is heavily involved.
Haven't they agreed an end point?
I think they've agreed an end point, and so this is the beginning of the end. If you like, there's only going to be 7 episodes in this series, and this is the penultimate series. One more. Yeah, I hope maybe next year. They haven't confirmed that. Might have to wait even longer for the final season, I think.
Wow.
So it's all starting to come to a head. I think if you've seen the new trailer, which arrived on Friday on Sky, etc., you can see it on YouTube and everything. You'll see that all the various characters, all the big characters, are kind of marshalling their troops, and I think they're all going to start meeting each other. And dragons, exactly. And it's all going to be. I mean, I couldn't be more excited. It is, people. Some people who've never even watched the show think it's all about those dragons, but it's really about power and about politics and about extremist religious types. There's all kinds of parallels with the modern world. I think it's a fantastic show. So I'm incredibly excited about the penultimate season.
Well, just to pique your excitement that little bit more, let's have a listen to the trailer.
For centuries, our families fought together against their common enemy. Despite their differences, together. We need to do the same if we're going to survive. Because the enemy is real. It's always been real.
Oh, come on. Marvellous stuff. The cast has been expanding for years and years, and now, thanks to the actions of Cersei, spoiler alert, that has been narrowed down somewhat.
Yes.
And the plot has become more focused. That's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. My favourite strand of last season was the whole Cersei High Sparrow thing, which this religious maniac, the High Sparrow, tried to kind of take over a whole world and ruin her life, and it was a horrendous figure. And she, as you say, spoiler alert, but it did go out over a year ago. So surely,
if you haven't seen it, if you've never seen it,
you will get a text.
Just to be clear, Cersei's not exactly the nicest person in the world.
No, that's true. The great thing about the show is the levels of evil, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like, Cersei's pretty evil.
Cersei and her children.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But she came up with this incredible, fantastically exciting plot, which did, as you say, lay waste to quite a few characters. So how she won? I mean, she's my favourite character. I think she's absolutely phenomenal. And what happens to her and her brother Jamie and all of that, I'm incredibly excited to find out what happens.
I spent the entire last season just watching and thinking, Jonathan Pryce,
Yes.
you have so got it in for you. You know not what is about to fall upon your head, because she's going to weak her Wenge.
How good is he as well?
He's fantastic.
Timpo, you spoke? Okay, Emma, what have you got for us? What's the summer highlight as far as you're concerned?
My first pick is Dr. Foster, which I'm
Is that like
so
Game of Thrones?
excited about. Well, I mean,
what are the parallels?
there is violent potential, certainly, and it's very addictive. This was like the big smash hit. Do you remember? No one expected it to be huge, and it finished on 10.1 million, which is absolutely huge. Yeah, Saran Jones played this kind of woman-scorned, paranoid wife, thought her husband was having an affair. He was. Became very dramatic and violent, but it felt very self-contained. However, there's a series 2. We all know what happened with Broadchurch series 2, so there is a slight concern that it's going to go that way. But Saran Jones said she's been reassured. She had to be convinced to do series 2, but it's going to be great. She said it's like a contemporary western, picks up 2 years after series 1, and it's about what happens to a woman after divorce and deceit have taken their toll.
I was slightly perturbed by the ending of Dr. Foster. Again, spoiler alert, it was 2 years ago. But it was building up to this wonderful, tense, is she barking mad or is she absolutely spot on kind of finale round the dinner table? And then there was this kind of soft focus ending where she rushes out of a cafe where she's happily ensconced with her daughter to help somebody who's collapsed on the side of the road. And I just thought, where are we going with this? It looks like a completely different television programme.
Yeah, you had that incredible dinner party scene where she smashed her love rival over the head, and it was very violent but also amazing. And yeah, you're right, the ending did feel a bit lacklustre. I suppose maybe they're thinking, oh, you know, we're already thinking about series 2 at this point. No one seemed to get their comeuppance for anything, so maybe that is what will happen in series 2.
Yes, indeed. Right.
So, okay, it sounds so far like Real Housewives of Miami.
Yes.
Did you not watch it?
Only British.
Oh, come on.
I've never seen Dr.
Well,
Foster.
I'm hoping that they're going to
really good.
replay it on the iPlayer before they show series 2. You absolutely have to watch it. Lots of people kind of watched it thinking, oh, maybe give this a go, because it was on after Bake Off and it really benefited from that slot. And it just kind of sucked people in.
Okay. Boyd, what's next, my friend?
Well, next it's a show called Trust Me, which is a kind of similar in a sense to Dr. Foster. This is the BBC's new thriller. It stars Jodie Whittaker from Broadchurch, which we've already mentioned, and I've seen the first episode actually at a screening a while ago, so I can tell you without fear of contradiction, this is going to be a much talked about series because it's set in the NHS. She plays a nurse who, for various reasons, gets suspended, and in complete desperation, she decides to masquerade as a doctor without those 7 years training that you have to become a proper doctor. And it's written by a guy who is a doctor, Dan Sefton, so it's full of it completely rings true. I have to warn you, it's quite gory, so it does show you the ins and outs of of what happens in A&E particularly, and it's not for the squeamish. But I thought it was almost unbelievably tense to see how this nurse turns herself into a doctor with, as I say, without the training, just reading all these books. Almost she's got a manual. She's clutching a manual as she's
Dr. Google.
Watching a lot of Casualty.
And if you think this is far-fetched, at the screening, the writer explained that this happens all the time. Like people, yes,
fake doctors.
There are loads of examples of it. In fact, I don't want to disturb you or anything, but it just could be that.
Yeah, because that's not disturbing in any way, shape, or form, is it?
Might not have had the 7 years training.
Well, that is the front page of the Daily Mail tomorrow morning, sorted by Boyd Hilton.
Yeah, there you go. So nothing to worry about, but it is extraordinarily tense.
Well, it can't be any worse than Catch Me If You Can, when you're like a guy who can't fly a plane.
Exactly.
Although he never actually did fly a plane, did he?
No,
that is one of my favourite films.
true.
I would find that very tense, I think, watching that.
Haven't we all been to a few GPs where we thought, are you really a GP?
Exactly. Do you know what? There was one person who was a GP for 40 years and was never qualified. There you go.
That's just crazy. Where's he getting all these facts from, Emma? He's just here to frighten the bejeepers out of all of us. Listen, we've got loads more to talk about. I'm not even going to trail ahead to what these these guys have got lined up for you, because there are some great shows. So get your pen and paper ready, or, just whatever, memorise it. And we will be back very shortly to tell you about what more you should be watching over the summer. Also reviewing Glow, the world of female wrestling. I was going to say, as you've never seen it before, but the likelihood is that you've never seen it anyway. And a review of Preacher. It's just gone 3:30.
On digital, online, smartphone and tablet, this is BBC 5 Live.
And here are the news headlines at 3:30. The Conservatives have reached a deal with the DUP, which will see them support Theresa May's minority government. In exchange, the Democratic Unionists have secured £1 billion of investment for Northern Ireland. Theresa May says all EU citizens living in the UK legally will be allowed to stay in the country for up to 2 years after Brexit. Speaking in the Commons, the Prime Minister said it was a fair and serious offer. Jeremy Corbyn said the government was taking the country down a reckless path. A 16-year-old boy has been remanded in custody after appearing in court charged with raping an 8-year-old girl in Manchester. The teenager is accused of attacking the child in Moston on Saturday. And a man's died and 4 others are still critically ill after taking a form of MDMA. 10 people were taken to hospital after using the drug over the weekend. Will is back with the sport. Will.
Hello. It can only get better where British players are concerned at the Eastbourne International Tennis. Heather Watson's on court. She's currently 4-3 up against Slovakia's Dominika Cibulková in the first set. You can watch the tennis on the red button of the BBC Sport website. And before that, Britain's Marcus Willis, Jay Clark, Liam Brodie, Alexander Ward, all winning their first round Wimbledon qualifiers at Roehampton. And Willis will play Liam Brodie in his second round qualifier. The 7-time Grand Slam winner John McEnroe says Serena Williams would be ranked around 700th in the men's game. Promoting his new book, McEnroe says the best female player ever, no question. But if she had to play on the men's circuit, then it would absolutely be a different story. It's raised the eyebrow of the world number 701, Dmitry Tursunov.
I would hope that I would win against Serena, but, again, she's pregnant, I'm not. Comparing me to a 700, it would be a similar comparison to saying that John McEnroe right now doesn't have a ranking, so he is in the same shoes as one of the spectators coming to a Wimbledon, because neither one of them have tennis ranking. Without trying to sound conceited, I am a much better player than a typical 700.
Crystal Palace have appointed Frank de Boer as their new manager on a 3-year contract. The former Ajax and Inter boss says, I have a good feeling about the club. Crystal Palace is a club that can still grow further. Australia are chasing 205 to beat the West Indies at the Women's World Cup at Taunton. The latest from Henry Moran.
And it looks as though Australia are going to win this in double quick time. 118 without loss is a score. 205, as you mentioned, is the target. We're in the 25th over of the innings. Nicole Bolton on 44 and Beth Mooney on 64 have made this look very easy indeed so far. Australia 119 without loss now, chasing 205, and we're in the 25th over.
There's commentary on 5 Live Sports Extra. England's women will try to avoid back-to-back defeats when they take on Pakistan tomorrow. Vice-captain Anya Shrubsole says the pressure got to them as they were beaten by India.
There were definitely nerves, without any doubt, but there's more a case of we just didn't execute the skills we needed to on the day, and that's kind of the bottom line. I think we've had plenty of cricket, we've had plenty of warm-up games, and there's definitely not a case that we can kind of blame any of our preparation. It's gone really well, and the reality is we didn't perform well enough on the day, and we're looking to put that right tomorrow.
Sebastian Vettel needs to calm down, according to Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo, after the Ferrari driver was punished for dangerous driving in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Vettel was given a 10-second stop-and-go penalty for deliberately swerving into title rival Lewis Hamilton.
I respect Seb a lot for his grit and I guess his kind of love for the sport, which turns into a lot of passion and sometimes aggression. But, I completely respect that and like that about him. But you've seen whether it's over the radio, sometimes he'll just go crazy or, do something. It's probably spare of the moment, probably sometimes doesn't think before he acts.
And Mark Cavendish is one of 3 Britons who'll be racing for Team Dimension Data at the Tour de France, which starts on Saturday. He's joined by Steve Cummings and Scott Thwaites.
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Well, thank you. Michelle is here with the travel. Hello, Michelle.
Hello. The M16 Greater Manchester will start there. There are problems anti-clockwise. There's one accident at junction 16 for Pendlebury, which is closing 2 lanes. And then once you get through that, there's also another accident just after junction 16, which is closing 1 lane. There are long queues because of this. They go back past junction 18 of the M60 and back on the M62 to junction 19 for Haywood. Elsewhere, Cheshire, the M6 southbound before junction M21 at Woolston. There was a broken down vehicle there. It's now been moved, but still very slow back to junction 22, Newton the Willows. The M1 southbound in Leicestershire is still queuing before junction 18 at Rugby after an accident earlier. The M11 southbound after junction 10 for Duxford, an accident closing one of the lanes, so traffic is queuing. And Wiltshire, Chickley, the A303 eastbound is still closed before the junction for Deptford. That's for accident investigation work and it's causing long delays. Michelle Dignan, 5 Live Travel.
Get more from BBC 5 Live with 5 Live Podcasts.
The great joy of this podcast is we can indulge in being nerdy.
If people didn't want it, we wouldn't be doing it. It's as simple as that.
How much you read into that, I think, is tricky.
Just released the incredible true crime podcast, Beyond Reasonable Doubt.
It was all about Michael, like he was the victim, and now Michael is alive. Kathleen has been 15 years in her grave.
I would never have done anything to hurt her. I am innocent of these charges, and we will prove it in court.
Download at bbc.co.uk/5live or using your usual podcast app. Get more from BBC 5 Live.
Coming up at 4 o'clock will be Drive, which is Caroline Barker and the wonderful Anna Foster today.
Yeah,
Lovely
it's
stuff.
ladies all the way today, and just so much politics to try and squeeze in. I know you're talking to Damien Green earlier about, well, in particular, I know you mentioned Carwyn Jones's accusation that it was a great big bung, essentially. Well, Carwyn Jones is on in the next half an hour or so we'll put that back to him. Exactly.
Damien Green said.
It's a he said situation, so we'll talk about that. Also, Theresa May's offer on the future of EU nationals living here post-Brexit. We'll get into that. We're expecting a new statement as well from Sajid Javid, the Community Secretary, on the latest figures on how many towers have been had their cladding tested, essentially, and what the pass and fail rate is.
Failed so far.
Well, exactly. Out of 60, it was 100% fail rate. So we'll get the latest on that. We'll bring you that when that happens. The highlight for me, undoubtedly, it doesn't sound like a highlight on the face of it, but the Foo Fighters on Saturday night at Glastonbury. Before Dave Grohl did Everlong, the very final song, he dedicated it to Laura, who died of cancer last month. Well, I've been talking to Laura's husband, John, and just about the whole campaign and the way he describes how that song was their song. It was the first dance at their wedding, but it was a song that had always, you have your song, don't you? It was a song that had always been their song, and they were going to go to Glastonbury together and watch the Foo Fighters, but she was just too ill towards the end, and they had this campaign to try and get Dave Grohl to dedicate it to her, and he didn't even know that it was going to happen until he was at his friend's house. They'd had a mini Glastonbury for him, and he just described the moment when, completely unexpectedly, he dedicated it to his late wife. There were tears, unsurprisingly, but the way he describes it, it really does, it kind of gets you in the stomach. And he is just wonderful and talks about all the incredible things that Laura did, so we'll hear from him as well. And then after 6:30, it's 20 years of Harry Potter. So we've got J.K. Rowling's very first literary agent, the one who published it, the one who got it made into a film, and also his office manager, which doesn't sound very exciting on the face of it, but they had a policy of not publishing work by unknown children's authors, and she just happened to pick it up and leaf through it and say, actually, you know what? This is quite good. So the first positive letter that J.K. Rowling had back about her work was from this woman who we're going to speak to at 6:30.
Wow, so it was like on the slush pile.
Exactly, it was, and she just happened to, every now and then they must just pick things off and have a leaf through, and she thought, actually, no, this is pretty good. And it all went.
The rest is history.
So there you go.
Brilliant. She sounds great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Anna and Caroline coming up at 4. TV Club for us for the next 20 minutes in the company of Boyd and Emma, and we are going through all the wonderful things that you can watch over this summer. Some things that we know and love and some things that are brand new. So what have you got next, Emma?
Well, so it's the 20th anniversary of Princess Diana's death, which is just mind-blowing, actually, I think. And there's going to be loads and loads of programming around it, loads of documentaries, some really good interviews, all that kind of thing. But BBC Two are doing a one-off 90-minute drama, which I think looks really interesting, called Diana and I. And it's about 4 ordinary people who never met Diana and how their lives and big events in their lives are overshadowed by this national tragedy. It's in all parts of Britain. It stars people like Tamsin Greig and Neil Morrissey, so lots of people you'll recognise. I just think it's a really interesting way to do a drama around this subject.
Sounds really interesting, actually. And it's Tamsin Greig, as you said, and it's written and directed by Jeremy Brock. He wrote the screenplays for Mrs. Brown and The Last King of Scotland, so pretty good calibre.
Lots of good people. They're filming it now, so I haven't been able to see any of it yet, but it does sound like it's going to be standout stuff for the summer.
Lovely.
Boyd.
Yes.
What's next from you for the summer?
The one I'm most excited about.
Me too. I've been waiting years for this. So about 4 years ago, Top of the Lake was on BBC Two. This was the incredible crime dramas, like the Rolls-Royce of crime dramas. And the sequel is arriving, finally, quite soon, I think. In fact, BBC Two is starting a repeat of the original Top of the Lake, I think next Friday night.
Great.
Yeah, so if you can catch up with it there in time, in a few weeks' time, for the sequel. It's Elizabeth Moss is back, currently wowing us in The Handmaid's Tale. She's Detective Robin Griffin. She's moved to Sydney and she investigates a body is washed up on Bondi Beach, and she investigates what's going on. The China girl of the title is the body that's washed up. And not only that, but the main new cast member is Gwendolyn Christie. Yes, Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones is her new colleague.
Only a huge Game of Thrones fan could put Gwendolyn Christie ahead of Nicole Kidman.
I know, well, no, I was going to mention her as well.
The same
You're right.
Isn't Nicole Kidman quite tall?
This is full
Not
of
quite as well built.
Amazing women.
Amazonian women.
Yeah.
Kidman is in it as well. Nicole Kidman is going through an incredible career renaissance, I think.
Yeah.
She's done loads of brilliant stuff. Big Little Lies she was in on Sky Atlantic. Lion. Fantastic stuff. And she's in this as a really interesting character. She's been married for years and years and years, and she starts being sexually interested in women. That's one of the things. And she's kind of, how she gets involved in this murder storyline is intriguing and fascinating. It's going to be superb, I think.
Well, it revolves around Elizabeth Moss's daughter, who was raised by Nicole Kidman. Let's listen to a bit of the trailer, shall we?
Yes.
Detective Griffin, you good? You all right?
Pleased to be back. I'd like to say thank you. Your baby has been loved by me very much.
So you're a policewoman?
I'm a detective.
That's hilarious. I like you.
We have a report from Bondi Beach. There's a suitcase washed up. There's black human hair coming from the inside.
You're with me.
I just don't think Top of the Lake. It's just not evocative enough.
Oh,
Lure me
if
in.
you'd seen the first one,
Yes.
which
I
was
haven't
set in
seen
New
the
Zealand,
first one.
and all of the way that you and I
Top
love
of the Lake
the
just doesn't.
What do you like? Top of the Morning?
It just doesn't really make me feel as though, wow, this is going to be a really dark. Yeah.
It was out the same time as the Fall, the first series of The Fall, and it was all seemed very bleak and dark. So yeah, I don't think darkness is a problem with this. It's definitely going to.
There was an actual lake in it.
There was indeed, and it was central
It was
to
central.
it.
Right.
And
We should
that's
say
my only issue. I'm slightly disappointed it's not in New Zealand.
I know what you mean, yeah. Although I think it's interesting that, the new setting will give it a whole different
Plus,
feel.
it's not a lake if it's washed up on Bondi Beach.
Don't
Yeah, you're
stress about the
obsessed
lake
about
part is
I mean,
not the best part. I have to say.
Just top of the sea, perhaps slightly.
Well, let's get in touch with Jane Campion, the writer
Yeah.
director, the esteemed one of the
Yes,
great.
she's rubbish.
We're loving your work, parts.
Look, if you could just change the title to Top of the Sea.
We have a very pedantic radio presenter.
Super stuff.
Okay.
Listen, it's on BBC Two later on this year. Do we have a date?
Yes. I think it's going to be on in about a month. I don't have a date, but I think it's on in about a month's time. I think.
Super.
So the return of a televisual icon, but to another channel, Emma.
Yes, it is impossible to talk about this summer's TV without talking about the biggest TV story of the year, which is Bake Off. Obviously, everyone's initial reaction to the news that it was all going to change. It's going to go to Channel 4, different presenters. No Mary Berry was, no, this is going to be awful. But you know what? The more I think about it, the more I think, maybe it's okay. Mary Berry says she's going to watch, so maybe I should. So it's Sandy Toksvig and Noel Fielding are hosting.
Very good.
Prue Leith, Paul Hollywood are the judges. There was lots of talk when they first came out that they weren't going to be able to do it this year. It was going to have to be 2018 because of contractual disputes and stuff. However, they've managed to get it onto this year, and I think that's really important to keep that momentum. I think Noel Fielding is actually quite a smart choice. He's very sweet. I think it's worth watching. It's not going to be the same. Don't think it's going to be the same, but I think it might still be enjoyable.
We spoke to Noel Fielding's mate, didn't we? Who is he? The guy behind...
What, on the show, or did you bump into him on the
show?
tram?
Well, we did. You and I did. We interviewed him. Yes, we did. The guy behind... Oh, no, I'm going to fail with all names, including the programme that he's in. Anyway, it's a friend of Noel Fielding's. We interviewed him, and he said you will be massively surprised at just how good he is and knowledgeable he is about baking.
Do you mean Julian Barrett, who did The Mighty Boosh with him?
No, not Julian Barrett. Love him. No, it's the one. It's the fake one where they get a fake celebrity. They get a celebrity in and they do a fake murder with him. Oh, and it's
Murder
really,
and
really
Success.
good.
Tom
There
Davis.
you go, Tom Davis.
There you go.
Easy.
Murder and Success.
The thing is, Noel Fielding has, he's an alternative comedian. There's no getting away from that. But you know what? So was Graham Norton. So was Paul O'Grady. And look at them now. They're family favourites. So just because you start your career in one way doesn't mean you can't finish in another. So
lovely stuff. Okay, on that note, if there has been something that you've been really, really loving over the last little while that we haven't talked about and you think we really should be, then please do feel free to sell it to us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. 0808 5909 693. And to the person that said last week, Go Jetters, yes, I watch Go Jetters all the time. We're having a bit of a renaissance on this programme of children's programmes. People are texting us about children's programmes that we should be watching. That is what happens when you have little ones, isn't it? That's all you end up watching.
85058, that's the text number. Right, Netflix, new drama Glow, not new glamour Dro. New drama Glow started on Friday. It's all about, and I would love to have been in the cell for this when they turned up with the pitch to Netflix, a group of women in the 1980s who auditioned for a professional wrestling TV show. It's amazing. Boyd, what did you make of Glow?
It's incredible, isn't it? I didn't know if this was a real thing that happened. The Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, they were called, and it was a real TV show that went out in America. And I thought it was fascinating because it's got that. When it starts, you think, it's going to be a kind of nostalgic 80s fest, and there is a little bit element of that, but it's kind of about how much we moved on. It's a reminder of how terrible things were. So it particularly focuses on this character Ruth, played by Alison Brie, an out-of-work, struggling actress, and she's being treated in an incredibly sexist way by the people every time she goes to an audition, which is how the show opens. And in desperation, she auditions to become one of these female wrestlers. I thought it was. I have to say, I was slightly disappointed with the first episode, but it just shows you the thing you have to do is carry on watching. So I watched the next 2 or 3, and by about the third one, I was absolutely fascinated by it, and I thought it was fantastic. And the particular star for me, it's funny because there's like 12 major female characters, and they're all brilliant, don't get me wrong, but I love Mark Maron, who is the guy who auditions them and directs the show and is the whole kind of mastermind behind it. And if Mark Maron's got a brilliant podcast in which he interviews people every single week. He interviewed Barack Obama in a famous episode a couple of years ago. He's a podcasting hero, and I think it's brilliant to see him. He's a stand-up comedian, and I think it's brilliant to see him in this role, one of the best acting he's ever done. I thought it was really good.
Let's hear him in action. This is Mark Maron, who plays Sam, asking the wrestlers for their special skills.
Wolf Lady, what's your story?
I have a very acute sense of smell.
What cologne am I wearing?
Dracarnor.
Trick question. Not wearing cologne, but I do spray that on my clothes if I forget to do my laundry, so you get points for that. All right, where's my real actress? Where's Strindberg?
Oh, here.
Know any good party tricks?
I can do, Audrey Hepburn winning an Oscar for Roman Holiday. I'm truly, truly grateful. I'm terribly happy.
I'm in. I'm in.
Dracar Noir. Remember that? Oh, that was stinky. Alison Brie there, you heard at the end of it, from Community and Mad Men, playing Ruth. So her and the rest of the cast, not people that we really know all that well, Boyd, I guess.
No, I mean, if you've watched Mad Men, there's a couple of actors from Mad Men in it. But yeah, they're not the most famous, but it doesn't really matter, really. They're all cast, I think, to fit. That once the show gets underway, you'll see that there are a lot of racial stereotypes that are used by this guy to kind of, for viewers in the 80s to easily identify these characters, if you like, these wrestling characters. And a lot of it's about that kind of thing where, are these women who are playing along with these stereotypes, are they kind of defying them, or are they kind of betraying their own ethnic group, so to speak? There's a lot of stuff like that in it, but that makes it sound quite heavy. It's also really funny.
Yeah, it's quite a lot of anti-Russian sentiment. Oh, did you not think?
I don't know. Nihal introduced this as a drama, which you'd be forgiven for thinking it was, but it's actually supposed to be a comedy, and I didn't particularly think it was that funny. I watched it and then I thought, I don't really know what to make of that. The trailer is colourful and bright and 80s and exciting, and then it just was kind of a bit boring and slow, I thought. I think it does get better, but the problem is Netflix appeals to people with a shorter attention span, I think.
How
people
dare you?
Well, it's true. It's
well,
true.
Yeah, it's true.
We want everything
now,
now, don't we? And the Netflix CEO has said recently they need to be axing more shows. They've axed Girlboss after one series. He's saying, we can't be complacent. We need to think really carefully about what we're putting out there. And I'm not really sure I'm not sure people are going to stick around for series 2. I do think Alison Brie's character is really great. The humour comes from her desperation to be a proper actor, and then she has to, demean herself by being this wrestler. She is also a very complex character. She does some bad things, but you're still supposed to like her, all that kind of stuff. So she's believable in that way. But I was really excited about this, and I'm a bit disappointed.
That's a bit gutting as well, to have a totally women-led show that is a bit of a letdown. Yeah, unlike Big Little Lies, which was, of course, excellent
fantastic,
in every single way. So who is the target audience for it, Emma?
Well, I think a bit of everyone. I suppose it being an all-female cast, they'll be hoping that lots of women will watch it, but I think it's kind of been quite broadly marketed. The idea that it's supposed to be really funny, you know, the idea of wrestling is quite funny now, isn't it? Because it was such a huge thing, but also so ridiculous, and especially this whole gorgeous ladies concept and the bizarre nature of auditioning for this kind of show. I think it's supposed to appeal to a lot of people. Let's see if it does.
I think it's produced by the woman who created Orange is the New Black. So I think my feeling is it's like for Orange is the New Black fans, which apparently is Netflix's biggest show, it's still the show,
is that right?
The most watched show. That's what they say. Yeah. So I think people who love Orange is the New Black, like I do, will definitely watch this. Now, all I would say is, you say Netflix is for people with short attention spans, but actually, of course, the thing they do is they queue up that next episode before you've even finished the first one. And if you watch it in that way, I think people will carry on watching and they'll get to episode 3 or 4 and they will be hooked.
Do they release statistics at all, Netflix?
They don't, but in an interview with Ted Sarandos, head of Netflix, he did say that Orange is the New Black was their biggest show, I believe.
And also, what they care about is the shows that get you to subscribe to Netflix.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Yeah, exactly. So would Glow do that? I'm not sure.
Okay, fascinating. Preacher, back for its second series with Dominic Cooper, Oscar nominee Ruth Negga and Joseph Gilgan, all returning to Texas for the gritty drama on Amazon Prime. Boyd, what do you think? Second series of Preacher.
Well, I have to say that I think I actually reviewed the first series on this show. Yes, and I really liked the first episode. And then it did tail off for me halfway through that series, and I kind of let it go, and I didn't religiously watch it. I caught up with it eventually, but I felt narratively the first season was a bit disappointing. It got a bit slow, and even though visually it's incredible, I was slightly disappointed. I didn't really need to carry on watching it. But the good thing about this second season, I have to say, is that it starts with a huge bang. I mean, there's an incredible car chase kind of fight, kind of very, very ultra-violent scene that opens the show.
I've got to say, as an opening scene, it was one of my favourite opening scenes to any TV series for a long time.
Exactly. So that's so good, that opening episode. It totally sets you up, and I think it's going to focus much more on those three very interesting characters and their interrelations, and they're searching for no less God. So I think the fact that it's going to be like a road trip with the three of them united under this one task, and they're being followed by this even more violent character. I was gripped, and I thought it was even more visually incredible. That opening scene was brilliant. It's like a thing directed by Quentin Tarantino. There's a big influence of Tarantino.
As was the dialogue, wasn't it? Really, that kind of everybody talking about something really random while all hell is breaking loose behind you.
Dexter's Midnight Runners is the kind of song. They start by saying it's a terrible song, and they end up all singing it together.
Which is what's so great about it. And a very strange and random conversation about circumcision that has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Let's have a little listen to the trailer.
Preacher. Where is he?
Your boyfriend's got a bloody superpower. Hold your guns. There's all kinds of folks going to be coming out after that.
I got a power inside me. I can command anyone to do my bidding.
You two hold hands.
That thing ain't even fun.
That's kind of fun.
The thing about it is, as well, it's an Irish woman and 2 Englishmen, and it's an all-American production, Emma.
Yeah, Brits abroad, doing well, doing us proud. Yeah, it's very sexy, very cool, they're brilliant. Ruth and Dominic are together in real life, which I always think, I know that's a bit cheap to say that, but I always think that adds a bit of extra dimension. It's always intriguing to see them playing a couple on screen as well. They're sort of on and off type couple.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's true, they've been together for many years, actually.
Love a bit of gossip.
Yeah.
Even though it's only gossip to me, probably.
But I mean, there are some quite violent scenes. If that bothers you, you know, be aware of that. But actually, I think this is really... They've said Series 2 is much more what the comic was about. Series 1 was kind of establishing it for a broader audience, and this is really getting down to business with this road trip. So yeah, it's exciting stuff.
All right, Emma, let's move on. TV news. What do you have for us?
Well, Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat, what are they going to do after Sherlock? That's not to say it's the end of Sherlock, but they're having a bit of a break for now. And they've said they're doing a new version of Dracula, which is going to be 90-minute specials, not sure how many yet, likely to air in 2019. And it's going to be a whole new version of that. They're not sure whether it's going to be historical or modern day, like Sherlock is. But yeah, they tried to bring back, not them, a different group of people tried to bring back Dracula in 2013 on Sky One. Kind of didn't really work with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, didn't really sort of pick up very well. So yeah, let's see if they can bring their golden touch to Dracula.
And Doctor Who series finale on Saturday the 1st of July.
Yes, well, it was a two-parter, so it started last Saturday. It was a shame because they had a big reveal at the end, which had been spoiled very much in advance, someone coming back, and it's the big deal this Saturday. However, we're probably not going to find out who the new Doctor is until the Christmas special. That's when we're expecting to see the proper regeneration.
How has this series fared?
Well, Boyd is the big Whovian, so what do you think, Boyd?
It's been a total triumph, I think. I think Who fans like myself have found it pretty much, like a 9 out of 10 series.
Wow.
Maybe 1 or 2 episodes slightly disappointing, but nothing, no real stinkers, and some real and I think it's particularly the trio of the Doctor Nardole, played by Matt Lucas, and Bill, the companion. The three of them have established this lovely chemistry together. They bounce off each other brilliantly. Bill has been the best companion, honestly, for Pearl Mackie, best companion for years and years and years. And I think the brilliant thing about this finale, so we saw part 1 of the finale on Saturday, which was my favourite episode. That's in my top 5 episodes of all time. Immediately brilliant. And we care so much about what happens to her that they've put her front and centre of this finale. And I've seen the finale. It's fantastic. There's an amazing final scene that everyone's going to be incredibly excited about, and it tees us up for, I think we're going to be really sad when we say goodbye to particularly this trio of characters, and Stephen Moffat. Moffat's faced a lot of criticism over the years, but he's brought it back. He's showing just how brilliant a writer he is. With
the figures for this in terms of just television ratings weren't as high, but is that because people are actually looking at other way, so people are perhaps catching up on it more, etc.
Yeah, this is the people watch it on whichever way they can on iPlayer, etc. So I think in the end, the same number of people kind of watch every episode of Doctor Who as they have done for about the last 3 or 4 years. So
right, okay, but just watch it across different formats at different times when they want to watch it, as opposed to when television schedule tells them to.
This is a bit of a weird one. Angela Lansbury making a TV comeback in Little Women. So who is she going to play?
Supposedly she's going to play Aunt March. This hasn't been officially announced by the BBC, but they're doing a new version of it, and they're saying, everyone loves Angela Lansbury from Jessica Fletcher days and Murder, She Wrote. So they're hoping she's going to be cast. She's in talks. This is written by Heidi Thomas, who wrote Call the Midwife. Angela Lansbury is currently gearing up to be in Mary Poppins Returns, but if she came back to TV, that would be pretty brilliant.
Super. Host of the week, disappointing viewing figures.
Yes, we talked about this last week. This is the attempt at a sort of British version of SNL, Saturday Night Live. 400,000 viewers is very, very bad.
On what?
This was on Channel 4. This was Scarlett Moffat doing her version of hosting the week. I mean, she's had bad luck that, when there's great weather, people don't watch telly. There hasn't been that much buzz about it, but still 400,000 is not great. Jack Whitehall is up next, so maybe he can help reverse the fortunes a little bit.
Just to give it some kind of context, though, 400,000, is that bad for Channel 4 as well at that time?
That's still bad for Channel 4.
Right, okay. Oh, dear. All right. Right, time for Sell It To Me. Mike is on the line. Mike, you have 30 seconds to sell us a TV show starting from now.
Hi, you've got to watch Hi there. Sorry, I'm going to get straight into it. Look.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. RuPaul's Drag Race. It's available on Netflix, seasons 1 to 9. It's basically a knockout competition where drag artists have taken through a load of challenges every week, and they're judged by a panel of RuPaul and sometimes celebrity guests. And if you land on the bottom 2, you'll be in the lip sync for your life, and if you don't make it through, you're out. You'll laugh, you'll cry. The backstory of some of the guys is absolutely
and that's
make you weep.
Brilliant, Mike. Great sell.
No tea, no shade, no pink lemonade. I love that, Mike. Nice one. Tristan is in Walton-on-Thames. Go ahead, Tristan. You've got 30 seconds.
Hi there, I just wanted to tell you about Bureau, which is Mathieu Kassovitz, who plays Lier, that's right. He plays the lead, and if you know your French films, you'll know him. And if you're a fan of Spiral, then I urge you to check this out. It's about the French Secret Service. There's something for everyone. They're all different characters to engage in. Old, young, there's a Syrian historian, a woman called Nadia, who gets somehow mixed up with the Mathieu Kassovitz character, who's a spy himself.
Good.
There's 2 seasons so far. Okay.
Great. That's
double dealing.
Do you know what? Regardless of what it wins, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Tristan, thank you for that.
It's one of our mutual favourite films, Lehen. On that subject, we're very, very quickly going to just talk about something very odd, you guys. You know, we were supposed to do a section called Have You Seen This? Anything that you've got to throw at us very quickly? Emma?
Well, I've just been watching Handmaid's Tale, binge watching it. I know we talked about it before, but I think it's the best thing that's been on this year. Elizabeth Moss is amazing.
Now, Hal and I have been watching, after not even mentioning it to each other, apropos of nothing, no connection, we've both been watching Cardinal, and we both
very good.
loved it.
Good choice.
And The Leftovers is the best thing on TV.
Oh, stop it. It only took everybody about 10 years to get round to it.
Okay,
now they love it.
RuPaul's Drag Race or Bureau? Emma and Sarah, which one?
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Right, absolutely, every day.
I'm going to go and watch Bureau myself. Thank you very much indeed, Emma. Thank you very much, Boyd. It is now time for Drive with Tony and Anna and Caroline.
He's looking very different today. Thank you both. Lots to come on the programme. In the next hour, we'll be live in Belfast with reaction to the £1 billion deal that the DUP have struck with the Conservatives. And after Dave Grohl pays tribute at Glastonbury to Foo Fighters fan Laura Plain, who died last month of cancer, we'll be hearing from her husband, John.
And we'll hear about the call to replace this with the more pleasant sounding this. I don't know if you get a row of ducks together.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone will move out your way.
First for news and the best live sport. This is BBC 5 Live.
It's 4 o'clock on 5 Live. This is Drive with Caroline Barker and Anna Foster.
And our main story, the DUP have agreed a deal to support the Conservatives at Westminster.
This agreement will operate to deliver a stable government in the United Kingdom's national interest at this vital time.
In sport, Heather Watson's one set up at the Eastbourne International, but it's been a really bad day there for British players so far.
And on 5 Live Sport from 7, it's the Tuffers and Vaughan cricket show, and then from 10 till 10:30, it's the first play-out of the new Flintoff Savage and the Ping Pong Guy that's also available as a podcast.
This is BBC 5 Live.
The DUP will support the Conservative government after a deal was agreed in Downing Street. The party's 10 MPs will back the Tories in key Commons votes. In return, they'll get £1 billion extra for Northern Ireland. Our political correspondent is Chris Mason.
Here then comes the killer line in terms of the stability of this arrangement in the coming years. Support on other matters will be agreed on a case-by-case basis. There are one heck of a lot of other matters where the Conservatives will be very nervous, not certain as to whether the DUP will support them.
The First Minister of Wales, Carwyn Jones, says the deal is a straight bung to keep a weak Prime Minister and a faltering government in office. We'll be speaking to him on this programme shortly. The Conservative MP Theresa Villiers is a former Northern Ireland secretary, but she doesn't think the deal should affect power sharing at Stormont.
James Brockenshire, the Secretary of State, and his team will continue to work really hard with the Northern Ireland parties. Now we've seen significant additional resources announced for Northern Ireland. There's even more importance being placed on a devolved set of ministers to implement those additional resources.
Jeremy Corbyn says Britain needs a new approach to Brexit that the Conservatives can't deliver. The Labour leader was responding to Theresa May's announcement that all EU citizens living in the UK will be allowed to stay for up to 2 years after Brexit.
They're taking Britain down a reckless path, prepared to put jobs and living standards at risk just to maintain support within her own party and keep her government in office. The cracks are already beginning to appear. While some in her party want to move towards Labour's approach to Brexit.
EU nationals who've been living in the UK for at least 5 years will be entitled to stay indefinitely. In other news this afternoon, the US Supreme Court has partially lifted an injunction against President Trump's travel ban on people from 6 mainly Muslim countries. It also granted an emergency request from the White House, allowing part of the refugee ban to go into effect. A 16-year-old boy has appeared in court charged with the rape of an 8-year-old girl in a Manchester park. He's been remanded in custody. The company Arconic has announced it's stopping sales of Rainabon PE, which is understood to be the type of cladding used at Grenfell Tower for use in high-rise buildings. 60 tower blocks have been found to use unsafe cladding following the fire in West London. Hundreds more are being tested. A man's died after taking a highly potent form of the illegal drug MDMA in Manchester. 4 others are still critically ill. And the Royal Navy's largest ever warship sails for the first time later. The £3 billion HMS Queen Elizabeth is the size of 3 football pitches. It will carry the F-35 supersonic fighter. Nick Wilson is a test pilot for the plane.
We already know what it will be like to go to sea because we simulate it so faithfully to the point that we know it's going to be safe. We've got to flight test it to confirm that what we found here in the simulator is indeed true. So we spend now a little bit of money and we save a huge amount later.
When did we start using football pitches as a measurement?
Oh, always. It's either football pitches, double-decker buses, or Wales. One of those 3 will fit any. Yeah. Yes, the country will fit anything. Any situation. Yeah, that's all you need. All you need.
Feel free to bring that measurement up at any time, Will Perry.
OK, Heather Watson has just taken the first set 7-5 in her first-round match against Dominika Cibulkova of Slovakia at the Eastbourne International Tennis. Watson's 2-1 up in that second set on serve there. British number 2, Naomi Brodie, though, lost in 3 sets against Kristina Pliskova. Kyle Edmund also lost in 3 to the American Donald Young. 2-time Wimbledon champion Petra Kvitova, meanwhile, has pulled out of the tournament injured. Britain's Marcus Willis, Jay Clark, Liam Brodie and Alexander Ward all won their first round Wimbledon qualifiers at Roehampton. In fact, Willis will play Brodie in the second round qualifier. Australia are storming to victory over the West Indies at the Women's World Cup. Live to Taunton, Isabel Westbury.
Yes, Australia 182 for 1. They've just taken a drinks break, but they may as well not have because they're cruising. They only need 23 more runs to overtake the West Indies total of 204. Beth Mooney did fall for 70, bowled by Stefani Taylor, but Nicole Bolton remains on 97 not out, and she's been joined by arguably the best batsman in the world, Meg Lanning, as well. 182 for 1, Australia cruising to victory.
Commentary on 5 Live Sports Extra, and Crystal Palace have appointed Frank de Boer as expected as their new manager. He signed a 3-year contract at Selhurst Park. The former Ajax and Inter boss says, "I have a good feeling about the club. Crystal Palace is a club that can still grow further."
This is BBC 5 Live on digital, online, smartphone and tablet.
Oh, but how big can they grow to the size of
5 double-decker buses?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Will.
To 16th in the Premier League.
Anyway, tonight, rain across Northern Ireland will spread into Scotland and Northern England. Elsewhere should stay dry but mostly cloudy. Tuesday is then looking like a mostly cloudy day too, with outbreaks of rain for many, potentially heavy and thundery at times too. Michelle.
Essex, the M11 heading north before you get to junction 6 for the M25. There's an accident blocking a lane and it's causing congestion down to the A406. And Greater Manchester, the accidents on the M60 anti-clockwise have now been moved to the hard shoulder. They were just after junction 16 at Pendlebury. Has left a very long queue though going back on the M62 to junction 19 at Haywood. A full look at the travel at 4:15.
Take 5 Live on the go. On digital, online, smartphone and tablet. 5 Live Drive.
Good afternoon, welcome to Drive with Caroline Barker and Anna Foster. Our main story today, after 17 days of negotiating, Theresa May struck an agreement with the Democratic Unionist Party to back up her minority government.
The two parties will work together under what's called a confidence and supply arrangement, a much looser deal than the coalition the Conservatives went into with the Liberal Democrats in 2010.
The two parties are working together. This agreement was formally signed in 10 Downing Street this morning, not by the Prime Minister and the DUP leader Arlene Foster, it has to be said, but by the Chief Whip Gavin Williamson and his counterpart Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. The cameras flashed as the paperwork changed hands.
Shortly afterwards, Arlene Foster stepped out of number 10, flanked by the DUP MPs Nigel Dodds and Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, and told the waiting media about the deal.
Throughout these discussions, our guiding principle has been our commitment to acting in the national interest in accordance with our shared objectives for strengthening and enhancing our precious union. In concluding this wide-ranging agreement, we have done so on the basis of advancing the security of our nation, building prosperity for all, and supporting an exit from the European Union that benefits all parts of the United Kingdom. The details of our agreement and future working arrangements will be published in full. As part of our policy agreement, both parties have agreed that there will be no change to the pensions triple lock and the universal nature of the winter fuel payment across the United Kingdom. We are agreed to meet the NATO commitment of spending 2% of GDP on the armed forces, and we are further committed to the Armed Forces Covenant and to its implementation throughout the United Kingdom.
Well, Five Live Money's Coletta Smith is at the Northern Ireland Assembly at Stormont for Drive. Coletta, we heard a little bit about the deal there from Arlene Foster. Just run us through the most important things that the two sides have agreed on today.
Hi there, Anna. Yeah, welcome to Belfast, where Arlene Foster jetted back to straight after that meeting this morning in Downing Street and making that announcement. So just to run through, as you say, a couple of those crucial elements. The key one is about pensions. The Conservative Party had wanted to change the triple lock to make it only a double lock, basically meaning that pensions wouldn't have to go up by 2.5%. It would have made things much cheaper for the Treasury, potentially in the long run. That's now been abandoned. It could have been very difficult to get that through Parliament anyway, because pretty much all of the other parties are opposed to that idea. And you heard her there talking about the treatment of military veterans in Northern Ireland and making sure that there's a good lot of military spending here in Northern Ireland when it comes to the defence budget. But also, really, the big headlines are about economic factors here in Northern Ireland. They've secured an extra £1 billion of new money and £500 million in old money, but that they can spend differently with sort of relaxed rules around it. And at the centre of that is nearly £500 million for infrastructure spending here in Northern Ireland. So we're really talking about big road projects here that have been on the cards for a while and been lacking funding. We'll be getting into the details of that a little bit later on in the programme, but there's an extra £1.5 million for broadband, an extra 250 million, should I say, for health funding, 50 million in education, 100 million for deprived communities in particular. So that's just some of the listed things that we're talking about in terms of this extra £1 billion of spending that the DUP have managed to get their hands on. They're very keen to stress that the benefits of this are going to be felt right the way across Northern Ireland, just not their own voters here that voted for the DUP. And of course, in a divided community, that's going to be very important to make sure that all sides of the community here are on side with how that money is going to be spent.
Yeah, I mean, how's that been received? Because obviously on the face of things, as you were saying there, everybody would benefit from extra spending, but the political background is so complicated and so fractured that it's nowhere near as simple as that.
Exactly, and basically, Anna, at the moment, that money or that promise of money from the UK government means diddly squat until negotiations here at Stormont that are ongoing behind the doors I'm standing next to at the moment actually manage to secure some kind of deal to get power sharing back up and running here in Belfast. So at the moment, there isn't anyone sitting here in Stormont. There hasn't been a local assembly here since January, and that money, that £1.5 billion, can only be spent by the Northern Irish Executive. So unless all the parties agree to get back around the table to form a coalition government, that money simply can't be spent. So as you say, there's been some fairly positive reaction coming from the business community in Northern Ireland, the kind of social communities here. Lots of people very keen to see that money being spent in health and education. Not much yet from the political parties, and significantly nothing said yet from Sinn Féin, who are the other major party here in Northern Ireland. But you'd imagine it would be difficult for them to refuse this kind of money and to be seen to be turning down such a big gift horse for Northern Ireland.
Yeah, thank you, Coletta. Five Live Money's Coletta Smith there at Stormont. Well, the first Secretary of State, Damien Green, is on his feet in the Commons speaking about that deal that the Conservatives have struck with the DUP. Let's hear what he's got to say.
With permission, I will make a statement on details of the agreement reached today between the Conservative and Unionist Party and the Democratic Unionist Party, under which the DUP will support the government on a confidence and supply basis. Having won the most votes and the largest number of seats in the general election on the 8th of June by a significant margin, it is only the Conservative Party which has the ability and legitimacy to lead the government our country needs. This agreement delivers the certainty we need in the United Kingdom's national interest at this crucial time. This agreement means the DUP will support the government on votes on the Queen's speech, the budget and on legislation relating to our exit from the European Union and national security. It will ensure that we can govern in the national interest, strengthening and enhancing the Union, keeping our country safe, delivering prosperity for all and securing a departure from the European Union which benefits all parts of the United Kingdom. To support this agreement, the government will chair a coordination committee involving both parties. As members of this House are well aware, and as our manifesto made clear, the Conservative Party has never been neutral in expressing its support for the Union. As this agreement states, Her Majesty's Government remains fully committed to the Belfast Agreement and its successors. This means we will continue to govern in the interests of all parts of the community in Northern Ireland. These confidence and supply arrangements in no way affect our steadfast commitment to see the re-establishment of an inclusive Northern Ireland executive by this Thursday. The government will do everything in its power, working alongside the Irish government, to bring the talks process to a successful conclusion in the short time which remains. Mr. Speaker, both the government and the DUP recognise the unique circumstances of Northern Ireland's history and the effect this has had on its economy and people from all parts of the community. This government is resolute in its determination to deliver for the whole of the United Kingdom. In recognition of our commitment to support growth across all parts of the United Kingdom, we have agreed to provide additional support for the people of Northern Ireland. I hope this part of the agreement will play a positive role in the efforts to re-establish devolved government. Funding would go to a restored Northern Ireland executive in the same way as the £2.5 billion of financial support and flexibility, which was made available to the executive through the 2014 Stormont House Agreement and in 2015 through the Fresh Start Agreement. The government supports further cooperation with the Northern Ireland Executive on infrastructure development in Northern Ireland. The UK government will allocate £200 million per year for 2 years. Both the government and previous executives have recognised the integral part digital infrastructure plays in opening up new opportunities for growth and connectivity for both businesses and consumers. We will therefore contribute £75 million per year for 2 years to help provide ultra-fast broadband for Northern Ireland, just as we've made funding